Gary.
And I'm Tommy Gary.
We're with Dracut Arts to talk to you about what's coming in September on the 25th and 26th. On Friday, the 25th, we'll have our art show as usual from 4 to 9. And on Saturday, the art show continues from 1 till 4. At 2 o'clock, we have author Maureen Stanton. And at 4:30, we have a wonderful violist who's with us today, Aleksandre Roderick-Lorenz. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me here. It's my pleasure.
You not only play viola as a soloist, you're also a conductor and part of a chamber group as well, correct?
That's correct. I'm a very sought-after teacher in the city of Boston and its surrounding areas, as well as in other states. I am a performer, so I like to consider myself a teaching artist because I play and I teach. So it's a combination of two different crafts that I do.
Oh yeah, that's true. It's very different.
Absolutely.
We have a wonderful clip of you playing viola. Perhaps we should start with that to show people.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Wow. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So this piece, this is from a performance I did about 2 years ago in Madrid, Spain. It's a piece by Astor Piazzolla, which is one of the most prominent musicians and composers of within the literature of tango music. So Piazzolla was somebody that innovated in this genre and created something that was called a new tango. So he was kind of in the avant-garde, in the initiative of a new movement of trying to express the best out of this beautiful music. And as a Latin American artist, I always feel that is part of my responsibility to represent musically some of our heritage and what we have. So I always try to have something that is from Latin America, not necessarily from my country, but something that is a representation of our wealth in music.
Yes, and you're from Venezuela.
Correct. I'm from Caracas, Venezuela, originally. Yes.
I love the collaboration you can see there between you and the pianist. You're almost talking to each other before you go on in the movement. It's very lovely.
Thank you, thank you. Well, that's what chamber music is about. It's, I believe, artistry and music making is a language. It's truly a communication. It's an exchange. Without that conversational portion of making music, I believe you just have robots otherwise, you know. So I believe when you see beautiful artists, when you see music that's really coming to life, there has to be an exchange. It's a give and take. There's a time to listen, there is a time to support, and there is a time to lead. So you need to have a combination of these three very important factors to make music.
That's actually any relationship, that's good advice for.
Yes.
Oh, that's absolutely correct. As I tell my students, in society we have to learn how to be good leaders and how to be good followers. It's a combination of both. You can't have one without the other, and that's extremely important.
How did you come to play the viola? Did you pick it? Did it pick you, or what happened?
I like to say, it's a funny question, I like to say that the viola chose me. And the reason for that is because I, unlike a lot of people that try to make a career out of music, I started very late. Usually, some people claim that starting at 4 or 5 years old is the right age. Some people say 6, 7, 8. I mean, there isn't a real answer for this question, but 16 is definitely way down the alley. So, and that's when I started. Now, I did not begin music overall that late. I was always a very musical person. Ever since I could recall, music always had a power over me. It's almost as if I was hypnotized every time that I heard music or that I had it around me, or when my grandmother was watching the telenovelas and then they had all these songs, and that's what captivated me the most. But it wasn't until I was 16 that I met a dear friend and colleague, and she's also one of my mentors, María Salas, who's a Venezuelan cellist from El Sistema, which is this very important system, orchestral system that revolutionized the world, because we've really had something in Venezuela until recently with all the critical things that are going on in Venezuela. Things are not in good standing at the moment, but El Sistema was pretty much created to give people opportunities of excelling at something, having something to look forward to through music. And this person comes from that, and I am also an offspring, you could say, of El Sistema. But Maria was the person that told me that I should choose an instrument that really could help me develop and grow as a musician. So she said, why don't you play, she's a cellist herself, why don't you play violin or cello or something like that? And I said, well, which is the instrument that most people don't want to play from the strings family. You know, and she said, well, most people really don't want to play the viola. It's kind of the, you know, the guy that no one wants to talk to here on the strings. And I said, well, then that's the one that I want to play. And then as it turns out, I think that's the personality that really best describes me. And I like to play my instrument in a way where that it's fitting and that it's showcased to the best of its ability, and not just tossed underneath, you know, the other instruments. Everyone talks about the violin and the cello, but rarely you hear about violists. So
yes,
I like
I
to
know, that's so true. So true. And it's such a lovely sound too. It's
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's different. So, you know, unlike the violin and like the cello, we have the C string, which is really powerful, and that is what makes really the character of the viola what it is, that we have a different personality here. In French they call it alto, you know, which is in reality the right what's the word that we like to use. So I tell my students, if you have a choir, we have different registers, right? So if in a choir you have your sopranos, and then, you know, you have something in between the altos, which is the mezzo-soprano, but altos is the secondary female voice. Then of course in the male side you have the tenors and your basses and the baritones in between. Well, the viola is the alto of the strings. So it's caught up in that middle register. It's a mediator of the strings.
But also the altos know in choir, any of us who've had that part, we get the boring part.
Absolutely.
Like the sostenuto, we just have the same line over and over. We don't have any excitement. But when I hear you play with excitement.
Oh, well, that's why, and there's absolutely something right. And the same thing happens here with the viola, because the viola, as we know it today, doesn't come about until Mozart's time. So we kind of miss a couple hundred years of history, while the violins and the cellos, and of course originally and previous from that we had the viola da gamba, all this, the gamba family really kind of leading the way. The viola doesn't become a solo instrument until Mozart decides to write his Sinfonia Concertante. And that is when it takes a different character. Haydn starts writing string quartets, which we know he wrote many of them. He's known, his epithet is the father of the string, of the symphony and the string quartet. So that's when the viola starts kind of getting an interesting part in music. But I believe as an artist, even if we're playing dull music, even if we're playing again whole notes or half notes, and we're just holding, like you said, something forever, I believe in trying to make something out of that.
I'm sure there's still a musicality.
Absolutely. So whereas there are some artists that would just play even something exciting that could make it sound boring. I like to think, and you know that might be true from your own experience, I like to think of myself that, you know, I'm some sort of musical unicorn, because I tried making music something, I tried reading it from a different perspective, and as an artist, that's my role. Of course, there are supporting roles. There are times where you're not the important person, but
but that's the give and take that you were talking about before.
Absolutely, there is a time to say, well, how about here? I want to give a little more cushion, versus there I'm just going to be a little less. So it's that, you know, in and out that makes music interesting, in my opinion.
Yeah. That's neat. Actually, we have a demonstration of a quintet, right? You brought a quintet. For
Oh,
us to
absolutely. The Schumann Piano Quintet, yes.
Why don't you talk a little bit about that piece before we put it up?
Absolutely. Well, Schumann, as we know, was a very interesting composer because Schumann ended up having a disease that was not curable during his time. And there were some love affairs because there were him and his wife Clara Schumann, which is also one of, speaking of strong and powerful women in our history. Clara was an amazing, Schumann's wife, an amazing pianist and composer and musician. They were very close to Johannes Brahms, and we know there was an affair there. And so again, the history becomes very rich and interesting in that respect, but Schumann's music is full of this ambivalence, truly. So there is a personality that is not consistent. There is something that is just disturbing about his vision of his cosmovision, as we like to say in literature, that is very interesting, just like Beethoven, you know, who's very confrontational with his music, you know. Mozart just is sarcastic. It's always poking fun at people and trying to really press people's buttons. In my opinion, I believe Schumann is very internal. It's very powerful, but there is this uncertainty with his music, and we could definitely hear it in this beautiful slow movement of the piano quintet.
Wow. Oof. So at first I was thinking, wow, how sensitive and delicate, and then it gets really powerful.
It absolutely does. So you can really see the contrast that I'm talking about in Schumann's music, where it goes from something extremely lyrical to an interruption, to something rather abrupt and exposed and sentimental. There are really both worlds within one composer, and I think he's one of the best examples in music of again that variety of temperament, I guess you could say.
Yeah. So not only do you change your role in music from teacher to soloist to chamber player to conductor, you also change genres. You use very many genres. What is your favorite, or do you have a favorite?
Wow, that's a very difficult question. I think they're kind of integrated. I have given myself an opportunity to explore. I think as artists, this is not it's not good to keep a closed book when it comes to exposing ourselves to experimenting with different music. I've had an opportunity to play at the Billboards, at the Latin Grammys, and with the plethora of different artists that do music from bachata to salsa to pop to Mexican music, mariachi music. So I've been a bit of a chameleon in that respect, and I have enjoyed it, every single experience. I grew up in my country listening to folk music, and that has always had a huge influence in my musical idiosyncrasy, I guess you could say, because there is always that in the background, and I believe that when you have something that you grew up with, you know, this becomes part of your story. Even if I'm hearing Bach, you know, if I hear Bach, I can connect Bach in many ways to Venezuelan folk music, to joropo, to pajarillo, and that is a beautiful thing, because I think it does changes in a way the way you internally hear the music, and when it's my time to use my own hermeneutics to experiment and to try to express or interpret a music, you know, which if you just look at a sheet of music on a page, it's nothing, you know. It's my duty to bring that to life, and I do love this beautiful quote by one of my musical idols, the French cellist Paul Tortelier, who used to say, to breathe life into music is more important than to prove respect for it. And now, this is, in my opinion, extremely important, because there are so many artists out there that are so careful when they're playing music, that they do want to honor everything that's in the music, but they forget about the storytelling. And I believe that if there is no storytelling in the music, there's nothing, you know. It's like a beautiful cover, but then you open it and then there is no substance. And to me, that's the most important. It's to bring something to my audience that is meaningful, that they can connect with. And for that, I have to become vulnerable and also allow myself to explore. If I'm just careful and if I'm playing music from a perspective where I'm just scared, I'm just trying to respect that text. Of course there's respect, but there's also there's this give and take within that too, because we have to meet in the middle. Mozart cannot play itself. It has to play. It has to be played through me, you know.
Yeah,
so
sure.
and who is Aleksandre, the artist, the musician? Well, I've had a different life from Mozart. I come from a different culture, from a different background. So I think all of these things have an impact in how you portray your art, your craft.
You know, we are saying this reminds me of what you started to tell me about the last piece we're going to play, which is a duet, which wasn't originally written for viola at all. It was written for 2 violins. Would you want to tell the story of that?
Absolutely. So this beautiful piece was written by Dmitri Shostakovich, who was a wonderful pianist and composer, and his literature is fascinating because he starts from a more classical, hardcore, I guess you could say, reserved music, and then goes all out, all crazy towards the end of his life, and that makes him such an interesting persona in the world of Western music, I guess you could say. He writes these beautiful dances for 2 violins and piano, and I decided to transcribe them to make the viola again a participant voice on this. You know, many people do transcriptions all the time for cello, for bass. I said, well, why not do something to enrich the repertoire of my own instrument? So I have transcribed the dances. So I took the 2nd violin part. The 1st violin part remains the same, but I took the 2nd violin part and I rewrote it to best fit the register of the viola. And then I decided, well, since I'm already taking this to the next level, why not even add some ornaments to really make it to make a different edition, I guess you could say. And while I was doing this in collaboration to my teacher and mentor, Professor Laura Bossert, who is a very established violinist and violist in town. She teaches at Wellesley College, at the Longview School of Music at Syracuse University. And I said to her, well, since we're going to do this and I'm changing this, why don't we think of a way where you could also make the violin part slightly different? And we started experimenting, and we came up with an edition that's that, you know, has its deviations, is not completely off. You can't say it's a different tune. It's just our own take on the music, and as it turns out, it became something very beautiful and
It
unique.
sure did. It totally did.
Thank you.
Here, you be the judge of this.
Thank you.
Wow. Huh.
That is just incredible.
Thank you. Thank
I
you
am
so much.
so incredibly looking forward to your concert.
Yeah, me too.
It is just
Thank
a
you.
privilege to have you here playing for us and giving us the opportunity to speak with you. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
Just-
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's going to be exact. Oh, gosh. I got chills.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So join us on September 25th and 26th. On the 25th, we will have photographer Tom Breyer and kite maker Glenn Davison from 4 until 9. There'll actually be a workshop on that Friday night as well for kite makers. Think about coming. The art show continues on Saturday, September 26th from 1 until 4. At 2 o'clock, we have author Maureen Stanton, and at 4, violist Aleksandre Roderick-Lorenz. Thank you so much.
Yes,
I'm
thank you.
so
Thank you.
thrilled.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again. It's my pleasure.